So in addition to increased productivity, you're also saving money.
Yes, yep. The legumes not only supply the nitrogen, but it's all about the soil health with all the microbes and everything else that does good for the soil.
So what other things are you hoping to get out of the project?
I would be hoping to improve yield on an average. That's my aim. That's the most important thing. With today's cost of production and everything that goes into growing cane, we need to make sure we got that margin.
Hello and welcome to Cane Matters. I'm your host, Sonia Campbell, and today we're coming to you from Ingham in North Queensland, where we're talking about a 2-year Sugar Research Australia project that has involved 19 cane growers in the lower Herbert catchment. The project concentrated on 5,500 hectares of cane land, focusing on balancing nutrition of these crops while identifying other productivity constraints and addressing them. Today, we'll hear from one of those growers involved in the project, and here to provide further insight is Bethany Donker, who is an extension agronomist with project partner Herbert Cane Productivity Services Limited. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you.
Bethany, you teamed up with our own Nancy Rincon, an SRA agronomist at Tully, helping growers to not only reduce their nitrogen application rates by almost 3%, the project activities also reduced the amount of nitrogen ending up in waterways by more than 4 tonnes. Can you start by giving us a brief outline of the project and what it set out to achieve?
Yes, Sonia. So this project set out to enhance sugar cane productivity in the Herbert by addressing productivity constraints. So by identifying them and what challenges growers had with particular blocks and across their farm generally that was constraining productivity and limiting them, and then to set out addressing those as well. So we conducted surveys and we took samples to sort of identify what the challenges were, the actual cause of the challenge, and then to address them. And then there's another aspect to the project which we were looking at balanced nutrition on top of that. So best management practice around nutrition through nutrient management plans, and then also looking at the potential to sort of refine those rates and tweak them a little bit to sort of get the best out of the crop from there as well.
So when you were working with growers, how did the project approach identifying and addressing those underlying constraints?
We were focusing on kind of first identifying what was driving those sort of yields or those lower yields, and identifying exactly what constraint there was, whether it was amelioration and the amendments that they were requiring, something like lime or magnesium to manage their pH and their nutrition, or it was constraints around soil type, management of different kinds of soil type, or it was something like pest and disease, looking at RSD, Pachymetra. So quite a holistic approach to addressing, kind of identifying and then addressing constraints one-on-one with growers. And then the second arm of that we talk about here is balanced nutrition. So looking at nutrient management plans for growers to identify what kind of soil test results they were getting, and then nutrient management approach for their whole farm as a balanced approach to making sure that the crop was receiving the nutrition it required. And then following the 6 easy steps and best management practice to not only confirm that with things like leaf tests to sort of confirm there was no hidden hunger, but also to ensure that the crop was getting everything it really required.
As you've highlighted, this project did take a very holistic approach, but essentially you were targeting growers that may have had an underperforming block and determining whether soil nutrition was a contributing factor.
Correct, yes. We're definitely trying to make sure that based on 6 easy steps, based on their soil test, ensuring that they have all the information at their disposal to make a really informed decision is actually what we're about. So supporting them in terms of taking the best soil test that they can, in terms of determining what kind of zones and how they manage those and what they apply to those zones. By doing that, we come back to a really good basis of information that informs what applications they would do across their farm, what applications of fertilizer, and to ensure that it is balanced in terms of the nutrition for the crop as possible.
How important is plant health in influencing nutrient uptake and resilience to environmental challenges?
A healthier plant will definitely uptake nutrients, and there's aspects to which constraints. So sometimes it's just the soil type that a plant is on. It's a challenging ground. It might not have all the organic material that helps with good root establishment, or we can have constraints like we had in this project. Unfortunately, we sort of experienced some record-breaking floods midway through the project, and that definitely impacted on the plant's ability to uptake nutrition. And so within those circumstances, under quite challenging circumstances, we sort of looked at practicing management strategies that will enable growers to get the best effect under those challenging circumstances. So we know that it's potentially not going to be what a normal year would be, but to build in really good practices that buffer those hard years is also a practice that we were looking at doing.
So you're making sure the plant is as healthy and hungry as possible so it eats every crumb of nitrogen it's put on its plate.
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing it. Yeah, it's growing really well. And yeah, there's definitely factors that we can't control, particularly in the rain-fed environment of the Herbert. But if we can make sure that we've got our pH right, our balance right, if it's got good planting material that we put in, if we've managed for things like Pachymetra, which we have to manage with varieties. So if we're choosing the good varieties, if we're choosing the best varieties that we can for that environment, then we're doing all the best in terms of that we can for management to enable the crop then to take up whatever it's being fed.
How critical is pH?
pH is definitely very important. It's a base sort of measure for crop soil health. We look at pH in the Herbert. It tends to be a bit of an acidic environment in wet, hot tropics. And we know that sugarcane really requires that pH of 5.5 and above. And so we aim to, many crops, when they're sort of fallowed, we take a soil sample. And if the pH is below, we'll recommend lime to pull that pH up and to enable a better environment for the root system development. It also improves soil structure, and it also enables more availability of nutrients that you're applying later in fertilizer. So your N and your P get better uptake into higher pHs. So managing that pH with lime as a basis for your crop is a really important starting point for managing any nutrition and constraints of the crop.
Across all of these comprehensive strategies you've outlined so far to address constraints and balance nutrition, this isn't though about rewriting the playbook, so to speak, is it? It's about partnering with growers who have the deepest understanding of their crops and local conditions to optimise and refine what they're already doing to help drive stronger crop performance and improve financial outcomes. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely, and that's definitely the case for Darryl Morellini, for example. We've just been working with him to look at biomass sampling of his cover crops. So Darryl's been doing legumes cover crops for quite a while and has made in the past reductions in his side dress based on them. And just within this project, we've had the opportunity not only to sort of use leaf samples to check the crop subsequently for how it's responded to the fertilizer and to those management approaches, but we've also had the opportunity just recently to go in and do some biomass testing to provide a real basis for what kind of N values, what kind of nitrogen the legume crop is giving him, in addition to the many other benefits of cover crops. But this provides a bit of a basis for his decision making around the amount of reduction that he can make after legumes and do that sort of safely to manage that yield for the following plant crop.
You've just mentioned project participant Darryl Morellini, a third-generation sugarcane grower from Ingham. We had the opportunity to catch up with Darryl recently and ask him about his involvement in the project and what motivated him to take part.
We have one farm at Bray Meadows and one farm in McNade area near the mill. I'm third generation here on this property. My grandparents started around the 1922, we think, somewhere there. Mainly cane, and we do legumes in the fallow.
What made you get involved in the project?
Basically, we needed to know a lot about nutrients, and doing the BMP, it helps cover through the nutrients, and now I'm looking into microbes as well.
What sort of activities have you done as part of the project so far?
We've been doing soil testing and leaf sampling, so that backs up what our recommendations are before planting, and it covers things like lime and gypsum, and then our soil samples recommend certain things or nutrients. We have the backup with the leaf sampling to cover if we got it correct or not. We're getting some good data that we need to sit down and look at and apply certain things that needed to be added that have come back differently in leaf sampling that we expected. So,
what are some of the biggest practice changes you've made over time?
Over the years, we used to be at 4'10", 5 feet row spacing. Now we've moved to 1.83, and we're noticing we're getting, not all varieties will do it, but most varieties now will go over eighth return, and then that sort of complicates things when you need soil samples done at fourth and fifth year. So you need to change your practices as well, because things have evolved, have changed along the way.
You've also been using legumes in the fallow. What benefits are you seeing there?
Increasing our productivity, we have been doing legumes, mounding and planting legumes mostly at the end of the year in the fallow, and sometimes I've gone as late as February and March still putting them in the ground. But the advantage of the legumes is that it makes the nodules, which creates the nitrogen.
Have you been able to calculate that nitrogen contribution and adjust your fertiliser program?
Yes, we have a calculation chart that we go by, and once we determine that our legumes are making nitrogen by the nodules, we can adjust and calculate our fertiliser we put at planting.
So in addition to increased productivity, you're also saving money.
Yes, yep. The legumes not only supply the nitrogen, but it's all about the soil health with all the microbes and everything else that does good for the soil.
And you're looking to expand your work in this project with the biomass testing?
Yes, we're looking now when we plant legumes to record the date and follow how they go along the track and see what happens by the end, and then measure and weigh the legumes after that 10, 12 weeks.
You've been involved in a 6 Easy Steps workshop as well. What were the benefits of that?
There's a few things that have changed over the years, so it's basically like a refresher. I found that things have changed to do with soil sampling and, different things with micronutrients and that we sort of think that are not necessary, but now that it's proving that they are beneficial.
And I heard you say before, for you, it's about getting longevity out of your returns?
Yes. We are finding now with most varieties that we're up to 8th and 9th return sometimes, and the crops are still there. We're still getting good yield and sugar content. I would say that it's the move to 1.83 metre drills. And we cut wet, unfortunately, that it rains and we have to cut sometimes, and the haul outs and the harvester, we're not running over the stool like we used to. One of the biggest things I have noticed is that we get less grass than what we used to. One of my father's recommendations, he used to apply a kilo of Direx over the whole farm. Now I'm lucky if I do 5% with a residual. I'm finding just a knockdown is good enough. And there's always little patches here and there that you'll get a bit of grass, which needs to be looked at, but it's not like it used to be.
So what other things are you hoping to get out of the project?
I would be hoping to improve yield on an average. That's my aim. That's the most important thing. With today's cost of production and everything that goes into growing cane, we need to make sure we got that margin, and we need to improve yield and sugar content that helps us on the bottom line at the end.
So Daryl, after all your years in cane, the value that you've gained from this project, would you encourage other growers to get involved in initiatives like this one?
Yes, there's a lot to learn. We never stop learning, no matter how old we are. And if you're keen and willing to go to meetings and understand how soil health works and all those things, you'll still improve. You need to improve things. We need to change. And if we need to lime at fourth return, we need to lime. Over the years, like my late father, we only used to put macronutrients, which was nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium and sulfur. And now we're looking more at micronutrients plus microbes. So there's things that will come out of this that if they show up, we need to change. It's all about soil health.
Targeting balanced nutrition and productivity constraints in the Herbert was a 2-year project delivered by SRA in partnership with Herbert Cane Productivity Services Limited. As well as tailored one-on-one expert agronomic advice given to growers, another valuable component of the project was group training activities and workshops delivered by SRA experts in agronomy, weeds, pathology and entomology. Finally, SRA would like to acknowledge that the project was funded as part of the $4.38 million Sugarcane Practice Change Program, funded through the Queensland Government's Queensland Reef Water Quality Program. For further information on this project and more, you can go to SRA's website, sugarresearch.com.au. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Cane Matters.